on, guys? Welcome back to Network Chuck. Today we're talking about how to study. Studying can be kind of a stressful thing for me, obviously. I posted a video recently how it was like super difficult for me to try and study and balance a bunch of things. Studying for IT certifications, especially when you're working a job or you have a family or you're going to school, can be one of the hardest things you go through. Definitely possible, definitely doable if you have a few hacks, a few tips, a few tricks. I've talked about that a lot on this channel thus far, but I have someone on the channel today who you might know, the packet thrower. He's well known, and he is a guy I wanted to bring on because he always is studying and getting certifications left and right because it's kind of the nature of his job. He's constantly having to get the next certification because he's a consultant and he has to learn the next latest and greatest things. So let's bring him in. Don, I'm going to bring you in right now. Can you say some things?
Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
Cool, man. So this is your name is Don Robb, but people should know you as the packet thrower. So real quick, why should we listen to you? Why should we even care what you have to say about studying? Do you ever even study?
The internet. I wouldn't lie to you.
You wouldn't lie to me. I mean,
Yeah.
come on.
I've been in this industry for a long time as a consultant and as an architect and as a network engineer. And I've done practically all the CCNPs, most of the Cisco certs, in fact, most of the Juniper certs. I'm an author. I've helped Tom Lamley write the CCNA book, and I'm writing a few other books with him. I'm writing an Azure admin book. Made the second best YouTube channel.
Of course, yeah. I mean, and yeah. It's really getting to the point where I'll just have to quit because it's getting up there.
I know.
You've got your sexy intro going
like,
on, and so I guess we should start with because you've made a career out of pretty much studying, and if we're honest, if you excel in IT, if you really go far fast, you're always studying, and that's just kind of the job description. So what are some of the things you've done and some of the routines and the habits you've kind of given yourself to become a master of studying, to attain all these because I mean, I swear every week, and I'm not kidding, you tell me about a new certification you're getting or about to get or just got certified in. It's crazy. So what are some of the best things you can tell us about how to manage and some of the tricks you kind of developed over the years?
Well, one of the main things is I'm a big fan of short-term goals. So what I like to do is I talk to a lot of people, and they always ask me, should I read a chapter a night or how much I study for the CCNA or what have you. What I prefer to do is just try and say I want to achieve 4 things a day, whatever they are. And that way, if I'm reading a book, that could be one thing. If I'm making a lab, that's one thing. And basically, I just want to get to the point where I do 4 things, whether that's me making a silly lab just for the fun of it there, or that's me helping out someone on the Discord or YouTube and making a video, or what have you. But basically, I just like to have a small little goal just to bump me into where I want to go, because it's a relatively easy win. And it's not necessarily a daunting task there. Like, I have probably 100 books on my shelf. It's going to collapse in my closet one of these days. And
that's how you're gonna die, right? Like we're gonna see an obituary, and that's how.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna try and reach one of my books on the bottom, and that's gonna be the end of me. But I mean, each of those books are usually like at least a couple hundred pages to 1,000 pages, and if you have like an arbitrary limit of saying like, hey, I'm gonna read a chapter a day, well, not every chapter is interesting. Like I'm writing an Azure book I mentioned, and the chapter I'm writing has to do with subscriptions. That's not a very interesting topic.
No, it's not. It's not very sexy. It's like, well, here's how they're organized. This is what it's for.
And to put another way, like I helped with the CCNA book, but the CCNA, like you have to build a lot of theory. You have to learn what a frame is. You have to learn what ARP is. You have to spend a lot of chapters before you get to the fun stuff of, hey, I'm going to make OSPF and make a ping happen. So you got to learn to build your foundation and try and work on each building block.
Now, what do you do when you have to like learn something completely brand new? Which I know as you progress in your career, kind of all things in IT start to kind of blend together. Like, oh, well, I'm going to learn this because it kind of blends in with this, and I already have a large background. But how do you tackle a new topic? How do you organize yourself and kind of decide your plan of attack when you have a new certification or a new technology you have to learn?
Well, the first thing I like to do is, well, I guess we can break it into two things. There's learning a certification and there's learning a thing. So,
Learning a thing.
well, because like not everything has a
Well, right,
relevant
right.
certification. So, for example, I have just been informed I have a large Aruba Meridian project, which is their location services for wireless, and I have to
Wait,
start
hold
working
on.
on that.
More
Right?
Cisco. More.
More Cisco. More Cisco. I'll switch them over to CMX when they least expect it. But I mean, first what you want to do is you want to see, okay, well, is there a certification I can read? Like, can I buy a book on that topic? And just start flipping through it.
When do you reckon? Like, sorry to like bounce all over the place, but this is stuff I
Sure.
want to like see how, because I'm asking for myself. I want because you're way out there. When do you decide to just pick a topic and become familiar with it, or when do you decide just to go for a full-on certification and just go down that path? How do you decide that?
Well, there's two ways of looking at it, right? One is if I'm interested in a topic, generally I'll get lab access or find a way to get access to it, or I'll be working on a project and I'll have to deal with it as part of the project. And as I go, I'll get more and more comfortable with it there, and then I'll either make a business decision, like this can help my current career path by saying, hey, I need to get the cert so I can make a presentation on selling the service because I'm a consultant.
Mm.
Well, more practically, if someone was, say, doing more of a junior cert, like say the CCNA, they can, or say Devnet Associate, because that's more of a fancy to the right kind of cert. You can say, okay, well, where do I want to go in my career path? And sometimes just throwing a dart on the board because you don't actually know if you want to do that career because you haven't actually done it. But you think you try some stuff, see if it's interesting to you, kick the tires a bit. If you like it, then generally you'll be interested enough to start digging more. If you don't like it, you should probably stop, if I'm being honest, because unless you have to for work, you don't want to be a phone guy if you hate phones because you're going to hate your life if you're dealing with voicemail every day, right?
Yeah, yeah. A lot of people. I mean, that's the reason I got so far so fast because those people did not like that, obviously, and I just stepped in and said, "Hey, I'll do it," because I actually ended up liking phones a lot. So yeah,
I
that's
quite like phones. I'm a clock guy.
yeah. So I mean, phones are fun. So one guy just asked. He said, what do you do when you're like going through a boring part in the CCNA? How do you stay motivated? How do you go through? Because I like you just said, you're writing a chapter in Azure about subscriptions. I remember making a video on subscriptions twice because I did it for Azure Fundamentals and the AZ 103, which is turning into 104. It's kind of dry.
Yeah, thanks, Microsoft.
Yeah, thanks Microsoft. Way to keep us updated. I mean, thanks, but no thanks. So what do you do to kind of spice it up and keep yourself interested, or is it just more of a you just have to go through it? You just have to just grit your teeth and go for it.
Well, I like to do two things. I'm a big fan of what I call passive learning. I don't know if that's an actual term, but I'm claiming it if it's not actually a term. But basically, what I will do is I'll put on something like a INE or CBT Nuggets or whatever video resource I can find, assuming there is a video resource. And I'll basically just let it play. And then I'll do something to keep myself interested. Like I'll play like a simple video game. Like don't play Call of Duty or something. We have to focus on it, but play like a platformer or something, just so your mind is interesting, but you're listening to the concepts.
Okay, that's actually
And
that's awesome. Yeah.
and then the idea is that because especially when you're first starting a topic, there's a lot of stops and starts and apples and oranges, and not everything flows together because you start talking about, hey, there's routing, but you also need to know about this and you need to know about that, and kind of becomes a Guy Ritchie film of, oh wait, you need this information for the plot to make sense. So if you watch a video, just plow for the course while playing a game or doing some other passive activity, but basically just sitting there and actually listening and paying attention to it. then at least you get the big picture. So you can say, okay, I understand what routing is. I understand this. This is why they're talking about that. They are not going to be a complete train wreck when I'm trying to understand it. And then once I do that, then I'll circle back and then I'll do like a detailed reading of, okay, now I'm going to actually read the chapter. And uh, that's where, and at that point, I'll probably stop and start making some labs and that kind of thing. Another thing is you got to learn how to make your own labs. Like it's great that
Oh
say
yeah.
Boston or whatever has or well, whatever YouTuber has some labs online, and that's great for starting. But you should be able to say, hey, what happens if I throw these two things together and just see what happens? And like a lot of times there, I'll throw together some random scenario either because I just want to see what happens or another way to help out people, it's kind of related, is working on the Discords or the Reddit or make a YouTube channel or a blog. Plugging both, by the way. And
By the way, guys, I
uh,
will put a link. Actually, I'll while you're talking, I'll find your link real quick and I'll post it in here. So keep going.
cool. But anyway, because you can either make your own labs out of interest or you can make your own labs because you're trying to make content for your lab, and that just kind of forces you to say, hey, I need to make a video for my audience, or I need to help out this person because they don't understand routing and I'm going to make a packet tracer lab or what have you. And when you make content for others, hopefully you're putting more effort into the content that would make sure you're accurate and you're not just kind of throwing it together. So it kind of forces you to make sure that when you're giving something to when you're giving it to someone else, they're being somewhat accurate. So it's a good way of keeping yourself honest. And usually, if you're just thinking like, okay, well, I need to make a blog post every week, or my blog's going to die, and I wasted my money on WordPress, then uh, you may as well keep at it there. So I like making blogs. If you read my blog there, I make a bunch of random, sometimes off the wall topics.
No,
Like
it's
one,
great. I mean, I used your blog when I was working on the guest shell. I mean, that was so cool, and you pointed me in that direction. It was really cool to play with that. Um, so based on what you just said, so passive learning, that's a great recommendation because oftentimes I know like for me it's hard to do focused learning sometimes just because I'm either burnt out or I don't have the time to focus. So maybe when I'm driving or when I'm having to like feed my kid or something, like I have 4 kids, I'm always feeding one of them. Passively listening to something, not like getting into the weeds and labbing, but just passively listening, kind of soaking it up. That's helpful because like you said, it's sometimes just hearing a topic and letting someone else kind of go into it really helps you kind of just, I guess, marinate yourself into it and soak it up. And then beyond that, you said to get through boring stuff, lab it up. So if you can, so like for example, subscriptions, it's kind of hard to lab up Azure subscription. I mean, it's not hard, it's just not fun. You go into Azure and when you create an account, you have a subscription. So you could create another one, but it's like,
but you can spice it up a bit. You can be like, I'm going to make a subscription with PowerShell or
that
whatever,
is
right?
true. You just solve the problems. Yeah, you could use PowerShell or Bash to create a new subscription, and you learn something new by learning the commandlet, learning how to use command line. Yeah, that makes it more interesting. So yeah, great example. So I guess maybe something boring in the CCNA. Gosh, I don't know, like a lot of theory. I don't know how you'd make that spicy. Um, but
Oh, theory is kind of a hard one because you have to learn theory to a bit to get anywhere. I mean, you can always jump forward, but at that point, you're just kind of typing in commands before you really know what you're doing. So I think that's more where passive learning is there. And then if there's generally, as soon as you have the basic skills, as soon as they start giving examples in the book, you should be trying to follow that in the lab. Like Cisco, for example, has a lot of relatively free resources. Like you can do Packet Tracer, even though I kind of hate the tool, but you can use Packet Tracer to
what do you
make basic.
recommend?
Um, well, for CCNA, as much as I dislike Packet Tracer, and it's just because of the limitations it imposes on the senior, like it annoys me within 10 seconds because it messes with my workflow.
Yeah, it's really a fantastic software up to like that point.
Up
Uh,
until almost about passing the CCNA, or maybe not with the wireless anymore. I need to see what the new version's like because the wireless is kind of a game changer for the new CCNA. But I know they do have a WLC component. I just don't know if it's
I did see someone play with it. It's very, 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 very basic and nothing fun.
Yeah, fair enough. So, I mean, there's that there, but Cisco also gives you, say, DevNet has what they call sandbox resources.
Which are fantastic.
For
Yeah.
free. Everyone here on this stream can log on to DevNet Sandbox, and they can play with a variety of Cisco gear, including some router labs and whatnot. It's focused on developers, but if you want to play with something like a Cisco wireless controller, they do give you access to that there. They also have dcloud, which is meant for partners, but I'm told regular people can access it there. It's kind of a humble brag, but I have so much random Cisco access, I don't know what's normal anymore. But I'm told that people can do it.
No, I've been there too. Like I was creating a collaboration course and I had access to all the dcloud stuff, and I'm like, gosh, I need to figure out what people can actually access. So I created another account and had my wife create an account and see if it could work. And you do have access to basic stuff, but nothing like too crazy and fun.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to get like an ACI lab, but you should
No.
be able to do like the basic router stuff for playing around. Then you also have things like I&E has rack rentals. For I don't know if they changed the pricing, but at the time they were relatively cheap there to rent a CCIE lab. Now, a CCNA doesn't necessarily need a CCNA or a CCIE lab, but I mean, it's still a router, it's still a switch. You can still play with the basic components of it.
Right. Right.
But you don't necessarily, just because it says it's for seniors doesn't mean that you can't spend some time and play around with that kind of resources. And likewise,
What's your lab of
oh,
choice? Do you use EvenG, GNS3? What do you love?
I'm a Viral guy. More Cisco, of course, but I do like Viral. It's a great automation platform.
Ah,
Uh,
okay.
it's because what it can do for you is, and it's granted this is more focused for seniors, but it can configure your network for you there, so you can focus on the more important things. And it also has full like RESTful APIs and stuff. It's a great solution, and the new update's coming soon. There, I was given beta access to it, but I haven't got around to actually press the button.
Yeah,
Uh,
I got the same thing and I haven't messed with it yet.
but I'm throwing together a course with Todd about how to use. I'm calling it the Network Toolbox, and basically it's just going to be like how to use GNS3, how to use Wireshark, how to use Viral, that kind of stuff. So whenever I get around to doing it there in my pile of work, it'll show up eventually.
So let's talk about books real quick, because I mean, books are some of the best way to pick up knowledge, pick up certifications. But some people really struggle with getting through a book, paying attention, making sure it's exciting. Uh, do you struggle with that? And what do you recommend with someone to how they can just kind of conquer a book and get through it? Because sometimes it's just you just have to do it.
I'm actually really good at reading. I can read very fast and get it, but what I
Well, then you're
cannot
no
do is
help. No, just playing.
no, no, no. But what I cannot do is I cannot read information I already know.
Mm.
So if like one of my favorite books is well, technical books, not book, but is the Routing TCP Volume One and Two.
Oh,
It's
Jeff Doyle.
Jeff Doyle's book there, and uh, it's a great summary or technical deep dive into all the routing protocols, at least at the time it was written. And but once I read it, it's hard for me to go back and read it again because I kind of know how this ends. And this it's not just for that though. I mean, for me, like if I watch a movie and then I watch someone says, "Hey, you got to read the book," uh, I'll have a hard time reading that book. There's like, well, I know he's the killer, and I'm not going to bother. So it's just more of a personality thing more than a common personality trait. But I think I just repeated myself there. But yeah, you got the idea.
So how do you balance book study and video study? Do you prefer book study or video study?
I like book study for initial viewing or initial viewing. Initial I'll do the passive reading or this is me backtrack track entirely here. Messed that up. What I meant to say is, if possible, I like to do the passive viewing thing that I mentioned there. Just if there's a video out there, uh, I'll watch like whatever it is. It doesn't matter the quality of it, just so I get the idea of what's going on. And then I'll typically buy practically several books on the subject. So unless I know for a fact that this is like the definitive book.
Right,
Uh,
right.
but I'll buy that there, and the reason why is I want different perspectives because, like the CCNA books, for example, uh, one book covers everything in great detail, and the other one was written by the one that wasn't me.
Shameless plug.
For example, Odom, for example, he does classically does more detail-oriented writing, whereas Todd Lamley he does more conversational writing.
Hmm.
But they have subtle biases in all the protocols, like BTP, for example, is a contested one in the CCNA because some people say, "Oh, you need to learn this; you'll never use it there," but practically you need to know it because almost everyone uses BTP in the real world. So it's so sometimes you see a bias of that if you just read one book, there you can be left with the wrong impression, and sometimes people discover things differently.
Right,
Like
right.
for example, in the CCNA book, just to talk about that because it's just came out, is that for the DNA center topics, I interpreted that to go into more about what DNA center is and the components on it, whereas Odom took more of a what is software defined access.
Hmm.
Uh, and that's the folk part. Now, both of us can be right, both of us can be wrong. We won't really know until the actual exam's out. But if you read both books, there you're going to get the coverage of the what I covered, and then also SDA because I didn't cover SDA at all because I felt that it was too far beyond what a CCNA should know because you're covering a lot of scary topics that we haven't really talked about yet.
And that's what I do too. I try to get my hands on multiple books when I'm studying a topic, just because you never know, especially for a certification exam. Um, and with one so new, you never know. That's why having a subscription to like O'Reilly and you get multiple books
Yeah,
at your
OReilly is
fingertips.
great. And it's great for someone like me, especially because I can find value in a book, even if they just talk about it for something I need for a paragraph.
Hmm.
But I don't necessarily want to spend $50 on that book
Yeah,
to
yeah.
that paragraph.
I remember
So,
back in the day, I didn't want my CCNP security, but I really, really needed to know how to configure ASAs at a pretty high level. So I got it for like a couple chapters, and that was so frustrating. I had to buy the book. I didn't know about O'Reilly at the time. So yeah, that's a good point.
yeah, so that's great. So like I'll constantly search O'Reilly, and pretty much anytime. I basically just once a week I'll just sort by new release for usually Cisco or DevOps or that kind of stuff, and I'll just kind of see what's available, and I might flip through what's there just so I can see what's coming. And O'Reilly is also great because it gives you access to drafts.
That's
So,
cool. Didn't know that.
you can actually see, for example, the books that are coming out in a few months from now. Now, they're not always ready for prime time, and sometimes they have errors, and sometimes the chapters are like, please note there should be a chapter here kind of thing. But you can get at least a basic framework of what the actual content is going to be.
Um, yeah, that's an amazing feature. I didn't know they had that. No, real quick, guys, just so y'all know, we will be answering questions here in a bit. I just kind of been letting us go for a bit, so we'll cover questions here in a bit. So far, what we covered is some of the best ways to kind of soak up information, especially boring information, is passive study, which again is such a killer thing because we can take advantage of the time that we otherwise would be doing nothing with our brains, like driving or riding the subway or bus or whatever. We can take advantage of that time with some passive learning. And I know some people, you may be passively listening, but you're not getting any of that because your mind's way somewhere else. So that might be you might have to like pull out a flashcard system or something. Which, by the way, Don, do you use flashcards? Do you use any methods to help memorize information?
Honestly, not really. I tried flashcards, and uh, they don't really do it for me. Now, that doesn't mean they're wrong or anything. It's just for me, it.
Boo! No, I'm just kidding. I love flashcards. I'm a flashcard addict. I got my kids set up on Anki. Man, I love it so much.
Yeah, I mean, something against them. It's. I think it's more. At least at the time I tried them, they were more just starting to become a thing. I kind of dismissed it early. So it's possible that if I if I might try it for some things there, because I just been informed I have to do some pretty scary exams the next month or two, so that should be fun. But the, it's fine. I mean, however you want to do it. Like where I am now, I'm in kind of in a place there where there's not usually a practice test. There's not usually like traditional training, so I have to put more effort into making my own. Like for example, there's no Boston test on say Aruba when I have to get ready for some projects.
Hmm.
So I have to figure out what's there because like I just did a bunch of the Aruba certs and I basically just bought their books directly from HP. And I'll tell you one thing: Cisco really treats the CCNAs well there because Aruba does not cover what's on the exam at all. But anyway, the point is, you got to do it. You can. You should also try and whatever you're learning, try and make some form of lab. Like Cisco has resources. You'll find a lot of vendors will have at least a trial that you can download for 30 days.
Mm.
So you definitely want to invest in something like VMware Workstation, if nothing else, there, so you can run vendor appliances.
Which
And
also, I mean, I recently saw this from David Bombal, but I think VirtualBox, which is the free version from Oracle, they now support nested virtualization with, I think, Intel and AMD CPUs, if they hadn't
oh, they
already.
just released that, eh?
Yeah.
Because that's a major hurdle for them.
Hmm.
Oh, I kind of feel like I'm giving my soul away if I use an Oracle product willingly.
I mean, true, true. I can see that. I'm a VMware guy through and through, but a lot of people, VirtualBox is just their only solution at that
I
point.
mean, whatever works. If VirtualBox does the job, nothing wrong with that. If you want to use KVM because you're a Linux guy or whatever, the point is you got to get familiar with some kind of way of building a lab reliably, whether that's GNS3 or Viral or Eve or even just doing local like VMs or Docker. But you need to be able to build some kind of working lab environment. So I would spend some time just building some kind of awareness so that you know how to add like a virtual network and that kind of things to troubleshoot it because it's a really handy skill for not just studying but the real world because I constantly build up labs for troubleshooting things in production and it's very common to have to get really deep into okay well why is this not working and I need to know if it's the product or the virtual machine or that kind of thing so definitely worth putting that kind of effort in. So always have a lab. Like I said, you always want to make sure you have personal preference, but always make sure you have like a small short-term goal. Like I try and achieve 4 things a day uh, of whatever it is, just so I can say I did my 4 things. I can take a break, or I only did 3 things. Maybe study or do something for another hour, that kind of thing, just to keep you on pace.
That's good.
Uh,
So you're keeping your goals. So you're not like you say, I'm going to study for 16 hours today. I'm going to beast mode it. You just have like four things. I mean, and are any of those four things maybe like a really huge thing, or do you keep them kind of bite
well, you can
sized?
pick what they are. I mean, I like to keep them bite-sized. Like,
Mm.
for example, I made an Infoblox lab for my girlfriend for her job. Infoblox is IPAM and DNS and DHCP.
And
Called
IPAM is IP address management for you folks.
yep. But I also have some IPAM stuff coming up, so I figured, why don't I just refresh my skills in IPAM there? So I said, well, I'm gonna make a network and set up the IPAM side. And I was like, that was fun. And then I'm like, well, I'm just gonna get this all the RESTful API stuff into Postman there. So I spent some time getting that in there, and
Hmm.
then I'm just like, well, I wonder if I can. I have the RESTful. Well, why don't I just make a Python script that adds some networks there? And then the last one ended up being a big thing there, but I ended up integrating it with the orchestration for VMware to automatically allocate networks. But that one I got a little bit carried away. But up until then, it was relatively small things there because what I was doing is like iterative, where it's like, okay, I got the server working, then I got the framework I need for the automation, and then it's just, well, let's just make a simple script, and then just gotta made a few of them there, and at the end of the day, I'm perfectly happy. It's like I got I learned a lot about the platform because I just kind of kept chipping away at it, and that kind of stuff you're not going to find in a book necessarily. I mean, I don't think there's an InfoBox book out there,
Well,
but
I think you may have answered my next question I was about to ask you, and it's a question I struggle with, clearly from my last video. It's the upkeep. It's keeping up with this new stuff while trying to retain everything you've had to learn. So for me, I mean, I've studied for my CCNP for a while, but I don't use that knowledge every day. So if I were to go and try to take the routes exam or the switch exam, there are details, the minutia of OSPF or EIGRP that I just would not remember, and Cisco would be like, "Gotcha. Can I go and configure it? Sure, I could, but I don't think I could pass the exam." So how do you deal with retaining old information, stuff that you don't use every day, and then also keeping up with the Joneses, all the new stuff? I mean, especially for you, because I know your job is always new stuff. People want you to do migrations and implementations. How do you manage that with the time, and how do you plan this out? Because that's one thing I'm struggling with.
yeah. So for one, just to talk a little bit about soft skills is project management, like understanding even the basic theory. Like you don't need to go get Project Plus or anything, but just understanding the basic framework of making a project plan and uh, keeping yourself accountable and that kind of thing. So what you could do is you could look at the exam topics, for example, what you need, and then just basically for one, frequently assess yourself on the exam topics. Like you should always know what's on the exam and where you are and how comfortable you are on it. You don't want to just look at it once there and then the day before exam you find out, oh, what do you mean OSPF's on the exam? Like you don't want to get blindsided. But two, if you're more of a task guy, you can split that up into tasks and say and make like a very basic project plan. And you don't necessarily need to buy project or anything, but some kind of simple like task software to say like, hey, I should be working my way through this domain, and just to help yourself keep track of where you are in the studies. And then for keeping on track of where you are, what I recommend is just helping out with the community, like join either my Cisco Discord or your Discord, help out on Reddit on CCNA or whatever topic you fancy. Make your blog post, because what I find is juniors will keep you honest more than you might want to care to admit, because they'll ask some off the wall questions in a way that you're not expecting. They'll go like, well, why can't OSPF peer with RIP route? And like, and you go, well, that's a stupid question. And then you go,
You're like, why can't it?
I don't want to call the guy an idiot. I gotta put this out in a nice, friendly manner. So it's helping out the community, like even a little bit.
That's
I mean,
fantastic.
you don't have to like answer every question there, but every now and then just pop in and say, if someone says, "Hey, how do I subnet?" and you don't have to be right. You just have to be earnest in your attempt. Like you can just say, "Oh yeah, well, /24 is 250 hosts there," and someone will correct you. It's like, actually, it's this, and if you're wrong, you can correct it and take note of it there, or if you're right, you get a little validation boost. It's like, yeah, I still know what I'm talking about, and that kind of thing.
No, that's fantastic advice, because I mean it's a double-edged sword kind of thing here. It's a twofer. You're both giving back to the community, and you're also kind of reinforcing what you know, bringing it out of the cobwebs for a bit. That's fantastic. I think everyone should be like, once you've gotten your CCNA, maybe spend some time in CCNP, offer your services as a mentor to people, help them come up, and they'll keep that stuff current in your brain. It's great advice. So you're saying, obviously, your Discord, my Discord, producing a blog or a YouTube video or something, or even just like, I think what's cool, I haven't used this feature too much, but like on Facebook groups, they have it to where you can volunteer as a mentor for that group. So if you like join my CCNA study group, you can say, hey, I want to be a mentor. And people can, if they're just starting out, they can select you from a list of mentors to help them out. So that's something we could try. So that's a great advice. So more practically, do you do anything to like keep up your skills day to day? Like, do you like one day decide, hey, I'm gonna lab up EIGRP just because I forgot it? Do you ever do that? Or
Yes
you
and
probably
no.
don't forget anything, do you? You're probably one of those guys, aren't you?
I'm like Mike from Suits, right?
Oh,
Ever see that show? Lawyer never forgets
yeah,
anything.
yes, you're a jerk. So I'm not you. I mean, I I have to like relearn subnetting like every 3 months because I'll forget it. Because I mean I don't use /24.
Yeah. Well, I'm very unique there because I get pulled into a lot of conversations there where it's like people ask me like, oh well, what's RIPS 80 like legitimately kind of thing, right? Like it's so it's and it's especially embarrassing if I get it wrong, so I have to keep a little bit ahead of the curve.
That's true because
Uh,
you walk into a company and like you are the expert. Like they're paying you money to be the expert, and like that's a lot of pressure.
and some people don't like me there and like to for a little bit of competition, I guess you can
Or
call
yeah,
it.
let's play a trip the consultant. Yeah, I've been there. I mean, like a consultant would come in and I'd be like, well, this guy better know his stuff. I'm gonna ask him a few questions, try to trip him up. Have you ever had that
Yeah.
situation where like you've been like pressure to do that and like and how did it go for you?
Well, I've had it happen a fair amount of times. I'm hard to trip up. I mean, it's possible. Uh, it's you have to come at an angle not quite expecting there because usually I'm pretty prepared for like a presentation or whatnot. But aside from that, what you need to do is and just a random side thought there, but I frequently say like on Reddit or whatnot there where junior says, "Why is this on the CCNA? This is stupid." It's like, well, you're not really in the field. Like I have these conversations. Like it's all kinds of random stuff hits you in the real world, so you have to know a bunch of random details. But yeah, people do quiz you in all manners, sometimes intentionally, sometimes not, and sometimes you just find yourself in a deeply technical situation, and it's you have to dig deep into the theory to understand what's happening, right?
Someone said,
But sometimes, yeah, I mean, I'll mess with back to the original
oh yeah,
question. I'll set up like EIGRP, not necessarily for just because for fun there, but I'll like do it more in the sense like, okay, well, I need to refocus and uh, do some CCIA study and force myself to go through um, EIGRP, for example, because I have because I deal with such like a lot of the SDN and fancy stuff like SD-WAN
right.
and all that stuff there. I have a hard time pulling myself back to the fundamentals for study because when you're dealing with like say ACI or DNA center that kind of stuff, there it's kind of hard to say, okay, well now I'm going to go back to INE and do the RIP labs like
Uh
but
huh.
yeah, you have to fight to avoid falling in what I call the senior trap, where you go, "Oh yeah, I know RIP, it's fine," and then you go, "How many hop counts is that?" Like,
Yeah, well, it's and also I get caught in the trap too, where I know I have learned it in the past, and if I ever encounter it again, I know it's a quick Google search, which is fine when you're just head down at a terminal working at it. But if you're again talking to somebody trying to explain something, or you're giving a presentation, that's not a good place to
yeah.
be to forget
Google
those
is not always
details.
a friend. Like it's sometimes you can't Google because you're being asked point blank, or sometimes you can't Google because the internet's down,
Yes.
and a good time to pull your phone and start Googling. And sometimes Google is just not the here's your answer that you think it is. Sometimes it's like, oh, well, here's 50 pages of search results. And the most frustrating thing in the world is when you find the guy asking the exact same question he's there in this abandoned thread.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
I know. It's like I know how you feel because I can't find it either.
and then there's usually some guy there's like, hey, just to hijack this thread, but is this guy blue? It's like, no, get the topic back on. um, so anyway, I mean, the short answer is always be labbing. To coin a
Always be
phrase
labbing.
like you should be able to figure out something. I mean, it doesn't always have to be EIGRP or whatever, but for example, like I'm making some SD-WAN videos for my YouTube right now, and like EIGRP is also in SD-WAN, so then that's my opportunity to say, well, now I need to study EIGRP again because I have to see note the platform differences if there is any, that kind of thing. So uh, you'll find that as you work in multi-vendor environments or as you get deeper into study there, you'll find different ways of approaching the same topics over and over. Like Cisco isn't going to ask you, or other vendor isn't going to ask you like a CCNA topic in the CCNP, but they will ask you adjacent topics to make sure you know it. So I don't know, it all kind of works together as long as you're keeping at it and be eager to learn. And the big thing it comes back to you have to be interested in what you're learning, right? Because if
True.
you're learning, say SAP, because everyone hates SAP, but it's decent money. That's fine, but you're probably not going to want to spend your weekend messing around with SAP unless you have to for work. But if you're really interested in EIGRP or routing, then you should be. Oh, wow! Did you know that EIGRP has a VPN feature called Over the Top? Let's play with that.
Didn't even know that.
It uses Lisp to
Lisp.
basically peer over the WAN, so you can maintain your adjacency without a VPN.
Oh wow, that's pretty cool. I didn't know that that was a thing. Interesting.
Yeah, that's I wrote a blog post about it a couple years
Of
ago.
course you did. I mean, because you touch everything.
Of course.
So I want to touch on this real quick, because and I realize as I'm asking you these questions, I realize it's like a regular person asking Superman, "How do you fly?" And it's like, "Well, I just do it." And I'm like, "Well, I can't fly. I don't have wings. I don't have powers." You are kind of like you just remember things. You get to lab it all the time, so it's kind of difficult to like grasp my mind around that.
I mean, to be clear, I mean, there's I mean, I need refreshers from time to time. I'm not like,
You got like an
I
eidetic
mean,
memory, like you just.
yeah, it's not quite like that. I mean, I drink far too much for that. But
Well, so like I
um,
wanted to ask. Sorry to interrupt, but like, how what is your day to day like? Do you have free time? I mean, because being in IT and being at the cutting edge, it does take time out of your schedule. It's hard to be cutting edge. Um, do you have not to sound like rude or anything, but do you have a life outside of IT right now as a consultant trying to stay ahead?
yeah, I mean, I mentioned I have a girlfriend and social life and stuff. Like I mentioned my alcoholism.
Well, sometimes
But
that's just a necessity when you're in IT, I think.
yeah, but no, it's you gotta. I mean, the thing is, you want to make sure you don't burn yourself out there. And that's why when people tell me, like, "Oh, I'm gonna read the CCNA for 16 hours a day," it's like you're not.
No, no.
You might do that for a day or two, but after that, there you're gonna throw the book away and you're gonna play God of War, or whatever game came out at the moment. Like you're not going to keep up the steam there, and nor should you, because like uh, I have read books uh, like in a weekend there, but unless like you're pretty disciplined and like for me, I've seen so many different. There's not too many new concepts, right? So I mean, if I understand how wireless works on Cisco, it's not a complete game changer on Aruba. Like it's still wireless. So I have enough. As you build more knowledge pools, I guess you can call it,
Mm-hmm.
where you can understand. Okay, well, I just need to know their differences and their terminology and that kind of thing, and I don't really need to read this 1,000-page book. I just need to maybe understand 400 pages of this 1,000-page book because the rest of it just reiterating like wireless theory,
A
which
lot of
I
overlap.
should understand. Yeah, a lot of overlap in IT, right? Like if you do like Microsoft, for example, the current CCNA has BGP, for example, and Microsoft has BGP. So you have those skill sets, and when you do AWS and the networking exam, that has BGP, and so once you learn the skill, it's not like BGP is a new protocol every single time. It's just you just need to understand. Okay, well, Azure only supports these communities instead of all of these communities, and that kind of thing, right?
So do you? I mean, I know you're like you're an Azure expert, officially, certifiably, right? Um,
Yeah. Plaque, not a plaque. It's a PDF, but I can make it a plaque.
I, I can make a plaque out of anything. Um,
I used to make plaques back in the day in the family business.
well, look at that. So you hear that, guys? If you want a plaque, just go subscribe to his channel and comment on his video. He'll make you a plaque. Um,
Yeah.
he promised. Do you, as a consultant, you kind of have to be, your knowledge has to be very wide. Do you find it frustrating that you can't go super, super, super deep into something like, because like currently you don't have your CCIE right now, do you?
I did not
So
know.
do you find it frustrating that like you can't focus so deep on something because you have to be so wide on so many topics?
It's not so much that I have to be so. Oh, you only have so many hours in a day, right? And I think that's where you're getting at is you do have to decide what's important to you. Like I will be making a CCIE run after the exam change.
Ooh, go for that CCIE Enterprise, huh?
Yeah, figure might as well, right? But I will be making a run there. I didn't have time to make an attempt for version 5 just because, well, it's hard to sit down and sit for 6 months there when it's like, hey, Donald, you also need to deploy this IWAN network. It's like, oh, IWAN's fun. And then when you deploy an IWAN network, which was the predecessor for SD-WAN, if people don't know, um, you it's like it's hard to sit back and like, okay, well, now I better learn RIP because they're going to ask me a RIP question. And in a particularly evil way usually. But so you have to focus on what's important to you. Like I had, and sometimes work tells you what's important. Like I did my Google Cloud stuff because, well, I'm thrown in the massive Google Cloud project, and it's like, okay, well, here's your 10 weeks of training, go, and uh, best of luck to you. So it's like, so it's sometimes work tells you what's important. Like if your company uses, say, Aruba for wireless, and you might prefer to be a CCNP enterprise. That may make more sense for marketability, but at the same time, work is going to say, well, that's great, but you're using Aruba here, so we want you to have their cert. And I have Aruba on the mind. Had a lot of Aruba today,
Well,
but
and that's funny you say that because I remember when I was coming up and I was like studying for my CCNP, I was an avid like telling my company do not buy any other brand but Cisco. I'm studying for Cisco. If you buy Arista, if you buy Juniper, I'm leaving because I'm going Cisco. I'm Cisco all the way, and it's frustrating because you want to learn those marketable skills, but then your company might be going a different direction. And odds are though,
sometimes it's not. Yeah, sometimes it's a fair direction, sometimes it's not. But anyway, so I forgot what the initial topic was here, but what I thought we were talking about, yeah, I'm lost
that's
entirely.
cool.
I don't
Well,
know.
you know what? It's a great time for questions. So we got a super chat from Bill earlier, and he said, "Is NOC the new NOC Network Operations Center? Is it the new digital assembly line?" Which I assume he's probably talking about. Is it just like a nothingness job? You go in there and do nothing. It's been a while since I've been on a NOC. I don't know if your company has a NOC. I'm assuming they probably do.
Um, so if I'm understanding the question, is he saying it's more of a like meaningless work and you're just kind of
Kind of a button chair situation,
touching anything?
security guard kind of thing.
No, I mean, like I'm a big component for automation, SDN, and whatnot. I'm kind of fight to be on the forefront for a lot of the stuff there. Like I do a lot of crazy stuff there, but honestly, it's like 1% of companies that are even beginning to think about this kind of stuff. Companies are just starting to like kick the tire with Python, and maybe they're making some Ansible playbooks and whatnot.
Oh yeah,
Maybe Cisco's
hardly
a database
anyone.
center.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Like, I remember seeing a tweet from Dimitri last week, and he's saying that he's looking for job titles in his country, and there's like no job descriptions out there for anything like network automation engineer. Like that's not even a thing yet. It's definitely like what the industry is trying to push, but the companies, it's not there yet.
Yeah. So just because I could write you a fancy Ansible script that or playbook rather, not script that would configure a router, that doesn't mean that Verizon or whatever ISP is near you is going to let you run that script there. They're going to be, no, excuse me, you're going to SSH to that router. And if you even think about running Ansible, then the security people are going to beat you with a stick.
Yeah, because I mean, let's be honest. If you're most of the time, people who are trying to run scripts or write Python scripts, you're not a developer. You're not obeying software development best practices. You're kind of dangerous.
You're not using a token or anything. You're putting the password in it, and
Yeah. So like And that's part of what I'm excited about as I'm going through the DevNet Associate is I'm learning the best practices along with the Python skills. Like I can code a few things, but I'm definitely not best practice. I'll be the first to admit it's dirty. Like I don't want anyone to see it. It works, but don't copy me. So I think it's
I mean, 10 years ago, when I was an ISP guy, oh, Christ, am I that old? Um,
yes.
but like 10 or so years ago when I was a ISP, like architect and whatnot, like I was writing expect scripts in Perl to configure GNP routers. And everyone was like, "You're crazy, you're a madman." And like that sentiment hasn't really changed. Like the other day, I saw something with Ansible for a client there, and like, "You're crazy, you're a madman." Like, so I mean, you're always going to have traps in some kind of form. Like traps is what the network operations people look at. They get an alert and they investigate it.
Mm-hmm.
And same with security and all the other things. It comes with a little blinky light you have to look into. But there's always going to be some level of configuration. Like just because you can automate everything, it's not doesn't mean that you're going to have your business do that there because well, 80% of outages are caused by misconfigurations, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's also equally scary to say that all your network devices blow up there because you messed up your OSPF playbook.
Yeah, which is even scarier. I much rather have a
Like I
fat
have a
finger
friend,
on one SSH connection than mess up the entire company with one script.
yeah, like I have a company who they were threatening to have my friend arrested because he was on the server ops team, and he basically was trying to update their DNS servers or whatever, and they had like 10,000 of them or whatever. Anyway, the script went bad, and it basically destroyed all the DNS servers. And
Oh my
they were
gosh.
thinking it was corporate sabotage. They were going threatening like police or whatnot and lawsuits. And my friend is fortunately a smart guy and he said, "Hey, change control proved it. The engineers didn't see anything wrong with the change." So as a side lesson, guys, do not bypass change control ever. Like
CYA, man, you got to CYA.
yeah, but anyway, that's just a particularly scary example of automation. And like any outage that Amazon or Azure ever had is usually like, oh, we messed up our playbook or that kind of thing. Uh, so no, NOCs are still one of the best ways to work for. NOCs are one of the best junior friendly positions for networking because for one, they expect to hire juniors because they only really want you for 6 months or so they can save money.
Right, and also mainly
Two,
you're just kind of you're getting calls and saying, "Hey, go power the server off," or "Hey, can you move that
yeah,
cable over here?"
yes, yeah, and it's strength from the fire hose. So you work from a bunch of random equipment that you otherwise would never think of there. Like when I was in ISPs there, I did everything from having to troubleshoot the video encoders to, I mentioned last time we had to do some porn monitoring.
Mm.
Like ISPs can put you in things there that you never considered. And you know what? You might find that, porn monitoring is my thing. And
I think it's a lot of people's thing.
well, maybe not that part, but you might decide that I really love working on CMTS routers, the broadband routers. Like I just love RF, and maybe that's your career path going forward. But so anyway, ISPs are a great initial career, probably not your full career. There is a diminishing return, but
Right, right. I mean, I
and
think
same with
working for
ISPs and
a I think
such.
I always wanted to work as a NOC engineer when I first started out because the way I thought about it, first of all, I'll be around servers and all these devices all the time, which means I might get to play with them a bit. And second, you have a lot of downtime, especially if you work the night shift, to study. Like those kind of jobs, I think are just like golden for people who just are trying to accelerate. You might start out pretty stinking low on the salary or hourly, but it's totally worth it. Just getting that
Oh
experience.
yeah, I did graveyard shifts like on rotation when I did the analyst stuff, and it was 12-hour days of at 3 a.m. What else are you going to do? And then they gave us a week off to transition back to days, so you don't die. And and so like you had there's something. I mean, it affects you after a while. I mean, I wouldn't recommend permanently going graveyards, but at 3 a.m. when you're just like waking up for breakfast and like everyone else is sleeping, it's a great time to read whatever book.
Yeah, yeah. I always tried to find jobs that didn't require my brain, so I could study and then find a job that did require my brain. Um, Now, I got the next question from Miss Heather Smiles. Thank you for the super chat. And she says, what are your thoughts on training boot camps for a certification?
So, a training boot camp is meant to be the nightcap of your study. It's not supposed to be the beginning, middle, and end. Like it's the reason why is like even if you look at the CCNA, like right now it's 2 books at about 2,000 pages for Lamley, and I'm pretty sure Odom's about the same thing. That's a lot of
A lot of
information.
information, yeah.
And so what you need to do is you need to understand. So first of all, like if I guess there's 2 different categories. If work's sending you on a boot camp, then you're going on to boot camp, and that's it, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Uh, and you don't always have a choice in the matter, or if you have a choice in the matter, it's usually like, okay, which boot camp are you going to? Not, or it's, hey, they're paying for it. Why wouldn't I do it, right? But if you're like out of pocket, going to pay like usually about 2 grand or so for a boot camp is usually you pay for 3 to 5 day. Um, I wouldn't recommend that for a junior because you're unlikely to have it as a jump start. And if you do it first, you're going to be caught up and you're going to have a lot of theory that you're not really understanding. And if you do it in the middle, it's kind of a recap in the middle. So if you do it at the end, like hopefully someone pays for it, or you find a cheap deal or something,
Yeah.
then uh, no problem with it, but it's meant to just help you solidify your knowledge and do a study. Now, if you're doing a senior thing like a INE um, boot camp, it's great because you can actually sit with like Brian McGann and or whoever's doing the training, or you can say, or the other value is the peers. So, like for example, if I go to that boot camp and you happen to be sitting next to me there, then you get some extra contacts and
That's true. The networking
that
piece.
kind of
That's
thing. So
good.
don't forget the networking and networking.
Yeah, of course.
So that's always a great thing to do uh, if you can. And for something like this, as vast as the CCIE, like it's good to if you do that at the start of your journey, then at least you're getting a decent framework because you're going to be studying for 6 months for the CCIE, and hopefully.
Yeah.
Um,
Like for me, I
so
totally get going to a boot camp for like CCIE. Um, I've done one boot camp and it was online. It's not for me. I can't stand boot camps because I'm more of a self-study guy. I like labbing things up. Um, but I could totally see like the in-person situation of being able to networking with people around you, having an expert right there, and being able to ask them questions. And especially for like a more advanced thing, it may be that you don't have access to like that higher end equipment all the time. So like it maybe you're going to a firepower boot camp and you can't get access to firepower. Um, that totally makes sense. But for me, I think if you're going for CCNA, where there's so much amazing training material out there, and there's so much self-study stuff out there, and there's so many ways to lab it out, I think a boot camp maybe just might end up hurting you more than helping you. But it's also your learning
things
preference.
like did they really update for the exam and that kind of stuff, and so senior yes, work pay for yes, otherwise no.
Yeah, that's perfect. Let me see. I had another question here. Oh yeah, um, Daniel Trax. Thank you for the super chat. Uh, he says, "Did you end up looking at the CCNA Cyber Ops certification?" What's your
I
opinion on
have
that, Don?
I have it
Oh, you have
actually.
it. Well, perfect.
I hilariously won the scholarship a couple of years ago because what happened was I'm a moderator on CCNA for Reddit, and someone asked me, "Hey, I can't apply for this forum." And I was like, "I tried, and I did it there." And I'm sure they probably realized who I was and said, "Yeah, just give it to them," or maybe it was just the universe being hilarious. But anyway, I won it, and so I did the material, and my girlfriend did it with me too, and we got it done.
Wait, she got it too?
Yep.
Is she,
She's in cybersecurity.
Oh, okay. About to say, is she technical? Because I can't get my wife to do like I'm like, please, honey, let's do the A plus together. Or let's I'll teach you whatever. Please just do one thing. She's like, nope, I don't care. I'm not doing it.
If you can find a significant other who at least can listen to your technical stuff, it's a good thing.
That's awesome. So what are your thoughts? Do you think it's a worthy cert? I mean, because it's definitely sticking around for some reason. I think DoD reasons probably. Do you think it's worthy of our time?
The
Don't hold back.
So yes, yes, but it depends on who you are. So if you want to get into like a SOC, like a security operations center kind of role or cybersecurity, yeah, it's a great cert. And my girlfriend tells me that they're looking for people who have that kind of cert now. Like they realize it's a thing.
Okay, wow,
Uh,
that's interesting.
uh, at least in our particular corner of the industry. Um, now. I don't have the greatest opinion of CompTIA there and like Sec Plus and so on and so forth.
Mm.
So I view it as a worthy replacement.
So you're saying
Because,
cyber ops instead of security plus?
yes.
Interesting.
Now, if you're working for the U.S. government, I'm told that they have parity now for the security requirements. So if
Really?
you get the um, cyber ops, it's there. But frankly, the reason why Sec Plus is so popular in the U.S. government is it's an easy way to get past your DoD
Mm-hmm.
requirements. So cyber ops is still two exams, and I believe Sec Plus is still one. So if you just wanna, if you work there and you need it for your job, just do Sec Plus. It's fine. But if you're looking for more of a relevant update, then I find the cyber ops is a pretty good blue team kind of search. It goes into like investigations, and it's actually not vendor specific at all. They're like it doesn't really go into Cisco technologies as much as it does the methodologies for cybersecurity and that kind of thing. So
So,
I don't know. I find it fun.
so you're saying it's definitely more for like a security operations kind of job if you're going to be in a SOC.
Yeah, if you're a network guy, or gal, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. I mean, if you want the knowledge, fine. And I mean, it is trash CompTIA there, but the book for CompTIA is still fine. Like you can read the Sec Plus book and you'll get basic knowledge. I mean, that's a good thing about it. And if you read the CyberOp books, you'll get good knowledge of it. It's just not necessarily relevant to. It's not CyberOps or Sec Plus is typically not going to get you a job. It's more just augment who you are. Now, saying that, SOC, in my experience, typically, because ultimately what you're doing is just looking at logs and following up,
Mm-hmm.
uh, they don't tend to hire super technical junior SOC people there. They'll basically take anyone who's interested for the most part, because within reason, of course. I mean, you have to know what a computer is,
Right, right.
but like if you're like a regular CCNA, you should pretty much have no challenge getting into a SOC job, or at least an interview for one, and then they might say, "Hey, look, you need to do this particular security requirement." But generally, they just want someone who understands basic security concepts and can do basic logic troubleshooting.
Now, would you say, because now the CCNA security, we bid farewell to that. Would you recommend CCNA cyber ops or someone just jump straight into CCNP security?
Honestly, I don't know yet. I need to. I have my theories on what the new CCNP is going to look like, and I have a theory that's more going to be a punch to the face more than a "Hey, welcome." Uh, but so I don't have a 100% read on if it's advisable to say, "Hey, you're going into security, just go into the specialist exam and go from there." Um, because Cisco never really wanted the security track or any other track aside from RNS to be junior focused. They wanted them to be people who worked on the particular track or had knowledge around it. Like the unspoken rule for the other Cisco tracks was they wanted you to be around CCNP knowledge because, like, security, for example, isn't going to bother teaching you OSPF, but it assumes you know what OSPF is
Right.
because it's talking about OSPF security, that kind of stuff. So it's not like, oh, you're not a CCNP, get away from me. It's just more implied knowledge and less hand holding. Also, the CCNA security book was kind of a disaster, but so that didn't help the situation. But so ask me in a month if we talk soon after the exams there, and I'll start seeing like how people are complaining to me on the Discords and my Reddit. I'll probably take a crack at a couple exams just for curiosity's sake, but I have a feeling that the core exams are going to be significantly harder because they're the CCIE written replacement.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I suspect that it's probably going to meet in the middle, like probably harder than the traditional CCNP exam, but probably easier than the written. And then I would suspect the specialists would be probably around the same as a regular CCP exam, which is not easy, necessarily speaking. But easy and hard is relative. It's really how well you prepare for the material and how easy it is for you to get lab equipment. Collab is hard, not necessarily because collab is hard. It's because, hey, you need a bunch of phones and some servers. Wireless is not hard because of the math. It's because, hey, you need a bunch of access points. I got like 20 access points just out of view on this camera here for some labbing stuff. So we'll have to see what the requirements are and how hard it hits. I mean, it's entirely possible it can go either way. It could be the exams could be a joke and like everyone's a CCNP next month, or it could be this is impossible and oh my god, someone finally passed this thing.
Yeah, it's gonna have to be pretty difficult because the old CCNP Security 4 exams. I mean that's a beating. That's a lot, and for some.
I know I did. Actually, no, I didn't. I upgraded my CCSP, but I did some of them.
Can't trust you now. No, and it's crazy. So like now we're going to just a 2 exam approach. So yeah, I'm assuming the what is it? The score should be very difficult, and the concentration. I have no idea. Do you think we're devaluing the CCNP now with having to where you only have to have 1 concentration? Because I mean, I feel like to have CCNP security, I feel like everybody should have the same knowledge. If you say I'm CCNP security, now it's just going to be this varying wide berth of different knowledges out there. It's kind of frustrating.
Ooh, my postman just popped up there. That's weird. Speaking of security, random pop-ups.
You're getting hacked.
But I don't know. I mean, if you look at other vendors, and I've done quite a few certs over the years, like I've done Juniper, I've done Aruba, I've done Arista, I've done all this stuff. And it's kind of hard because Cisco is actually the widest knowledge or product level knowledge for like a certification level.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you look at say the Aruba certification for wireless, well, it's relatively small. Well, I'll take Palo Alto. I've been picking on Aruba for a while. You pick on Palo Alto. They make you learn pretty much everything you can do in the Palo Alto if you want to do their exam. But at the end of the day, they just make firewalls. I mean, they have some routing capability and whatnot, and they have some endpoint stuff too, but let's not confuse the point. But if you look at, say, this current CCNP exam, well, you have email security, you have web security, you have ICE, you have ASAs, you got VPNs. Like, that's a much broader scope spread across things. So I think in some ways it could be easier. I think it's just going to be all about what specialization you have, and I think it's going to take out a little bit for the industry to get used to the shorthand if it survives.
I think it may have been too much of a big change for the industry because it's going to take a lot to adapt to this. I appreciate where they're going with it.
Microsoft did the same thing. I mean, Microsoft did the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
Took an axe to their MCSE exams there. Now it's all Azure and that kind of stuff.
Very role-based, yeah.
So I think Cisco's trying to mirror what Cisco's doing, or Cisco's trying to mirror what Cisco's doing. Cisco's trying to mirror what Microsoft's doing. And at the end of the day, a certification is it's meant to enhance your experience. It's not meant to replace your experience or anything
very good.
The idea is that you're supposed to be. It's not that I am a CCNP security. I am the walking god in the room kind of thing. It's more like, okay, this guy knows Cisco security well, and I can Chuck can talk to me about firepower ice, and I probably won't have a confused look on my face. Uh, I mean, ultimately that's what a certification is supposed to say. It's a shorthand for your experience at the end of the
That's
day.
good. I like that.
So is it 100% great thing that like a CCNP security, like I am now, and a new CCP security are going to be look the same on paper? I don't know. I mean, for that to matter, I mean, you have to look at the resume, right? And my resume probably looks a lot different than, say, a guy there who took a 6 month boot camp at INE or whatever and got a CCP security. So I think at the end of the day, it's not going to be too big of a deal. Should Cisco have changed the names? Maybe, but we saw like Microsoft tried to change the names, like when they did the remember the
Oh
MCITP,
yeah. Hmm. I
or
can never
and
remember the
then the
order. Is it
recruiters,
MCIPT? MC? I can never remember.
something like that. But then the recruiters like, so do you have an MCSE? And then Microsoft slapped their forehead and said, okay, fine, MCSE is back. Like, so I don't know. We'll have to see. I mean, this is probably an experiment.
That's
Um,
exactly what it is.
and I if I'm reading the industry, I'm thinking that the days of a 3 year without an update are gone. I think we're going to start moving into rapid updates there, where they're going to tie things more to product versions,
Hmm.
like say what Checkpoint does for their certifications or their year, and as Firepower 6.6 comes out, which is the current version on beta that I'm playing with, as that comes out there, they're going to say just like actually Red Hat, like so. Red Hat does like Red Hat or RHCE 7, 8, and 9 when it comes
Yeah.
out. So I think it'll probably be something like CCNP 2020 or CCNP Firepower 7 or whatever.
Yeah, they've
So
got to do something like that. And if they did that, that would be helpful. And people could more readily
just so a quick
react.
shorthand of like, I understand what this person is, and hey, that's great that you understand firepower, but when you first heard about it, it was this, and now it's this. Like,
Yeah, and especially for the next 3 years or so, when people still are CCNP certified, but they're on the old exams, and like, there's no way to differentiate right now. No one's going to really know. Um, Now, just to kind of change gears real quick, I saw a question earlier. They asked, what do you think would be the minimum requirements for a junior network engineer job at an MSP, such as what you're working at right now?
well, actually, I work for a VAR to be technically accurate, but we do have an NSP component. But
Potato, potato.
um, I know, I'm just being. um, so I have no idea. Click, but no. Honestly, people think people want more from juniors than we actually want. Most of the time when we're hiring juniors, like most everyone, we just want someone who's earnest, eager to learn, honest, like not trying to pull one over. If you shower, that's great too. Uh,
Soft skills.
like, don't be a weirdo. Don't, uh, dress presentable. Don't be like an embarrassment that we have to throw in a dark room. Like, and just show you, hey, I'm trying to learn CCNA. OSPF sure is neat. Like, and not like the attitude of like, yeah, I want CCNP so you can give me more money. Like, so generally, as long as you have a can-do attitude, and you're earnest and you're honest. Like, if you're doing an interview and you don't know what's wrong, don't try and talk way out of it. Just say, look, I don't know, but I think it might be this or something. Like, preface it. Like, don't study OSPF the night before there, and you're talking about, oh, I know the OSPF database so well there, and then I ask you, so what command do you do to check the neighbor, and you have no idea. It's like, okay, well, you just studied the night before and you learn that part, but you don't actually work with the stuff.
Right, right, right. You just kind of just
So anyway, the point
cramming.
is, as long as you're earnest, you're fine. The problem from the hiring perspective is that, frankly speaking, the junior resume is essentially a blank piece of paper as far as we're concerned. And what I mean by that is like, okay, you worked at McDonald's or whatever in high school. That's great. I don't really care. I mean, maybe you have some work experience, that kind of thing. Maybe you worked at wherever you worked growing up, but it's not technical. So like, I'm basically just parsing a couple skills. Like, okay, well, you can talk to people on the phone and probably not cause an international incident. And then it's like, okay, well, you have a blank piece of paper, and it's like, okay, well, do they have a CCNA? Okay, well, put them in this pile, and if they don't, then throw them in the other pile. And if you don't, that doesn't mean that we're throwing your resume in the trash necessarily, but you have to remember the scale of a job posting. Like, usually when there's a job posting, there's at least 100 people, maybe 1,000 people applying to this thing. And, if, and I'm not like reading every one of those 1,000 resumes to find a decent junior. I'm just saying, okay, well, I'm just going to grab a couple from the CCNA pile because, hey, I'm just going to interview 3 or 4 people and I'm going to go at lunch. Like, I'm not going to scour the earth like some kind of America's Got Talent or something, trying to find one, right? Like,
Right.
like, the frustrating part from the junior is, and I make the joke, it's a lot like a dating app there, where you just got to keep spamming out hey until you get smiley face back. Like, you you got to keep spamming it out there because it's not necessarily you. It's just that other people have applied to this there, and maybe CCP did happen to apply for that position, and we have to look at that guy because why wouldn't we? Or it's just random thing. Like, there's a lot of times there where I know people got a job simply because of where they happen to land on the stack of
Ah,
resumes.
yeah. Well, that's a
Uh,
good point. So basically, what you're saying is the minimum requirements are
yeah,
wide and varied, and it just depends on how many people are applying for it and where you end up on the stack. Because you could come at it with a very simple resume with not even a CCNA, and there might not be a lot of applicants. They're looking for someone very junior, just someone that they can bring in fresh, they can mold and make their own.
yeah, they might like I literally might just want someone who does Excel spreadsheets, and I'm not caring about much, but we're not going to put a job application out there and say this guy only needs to do Excel spreadsheets because, well, then we're just going to get a bunch of Excel people, and what we really want is like a network person who we can mold, not to. So job postings are a bit of window dressing. They're not necessarily. I don't want to say they're honest, but they're not honest, but they're like the ideal version of what we're looking for, and it's more just to give you more insight into what is generally accepted for the company. Like, you could be absolutely no one and walk in and you get a job, or you could be like a CCIE there, and we don't look at your resume because, well, why is the CCIE junior applying for this
Yeah.
position? So it's like a draw, and then there's other considerations. Like, people think that HR is like the barrier they need to trick, but really HR doesn't really get involved in most cases unless it's like a really revolving door kind of store, like or a store, like say a help desk at a ISP, where it's like they don't really care, they want a body, HR knows what they're looking for.
Mm.
But otherwise, it's the IT people who's doing the interview. They're picking the resumes, and they're within reason. They set the job postings there, and then HR usually tries to, believe it or not, they try and make it more wide. So they all, like I once tried to hire a SharePoint developer for, I can't remember what year, let's just say 2016, and uh, they're like, "Oh, you can't put 2016 on there; it's too limiting." It's like, okay, well, uh, so. Uh, so HR does that there. HR usually gets in for things like reference checks and uh, diversity requirements of theirs. So like some states and provinces, whatnot, have you must look at a girl applicant because of diversity laws and that kind of thing.
Right.
Like, HR is basically just quality checking to make sure that you're there. But HR, it doesn't really make sense. HR, he can barely turn on the computer saying, "Okay, well, here's your list of network engineers. Let me know how we did."
Yeah, I know. I've dealt with. I mean, I'm kind of an interview slut. I love going through the process, and yeah, HR is just they check a few boxes. There's something like, do you have experience with this? Okay, check. Do you have experience with this? Check. And then you get through to the IT people, and then they actually ask you the real questions. They find out who you are. They may be okay with lack of knowledge here as long as you're kind of a culture fit and you're willing to learn. Or I always ask people when I interview them, I'd ask them like, hey, what's your favorite routing protocol? And it's a weird question, but like it demonstrates that they're, first of all, they know what a routing protocol is, and they can pick one and give me reasons why they love it, which means they know it and they know the differences. So I'm looking for passion and willingness to learn, and I think that's just a skill that really pops out. And it's always what I want to
Also,
hire.
just as we're throwing interview stuff in here, remember an interview is a two-way street. Like it's not interviewer asks the candidate questions and that's it. There, like you should be asking the interviewer questions about the company, and you should be asking things like, so what's the shift like? What's my team? Who do I escalate to? Whatever. What's your network look like? Are you what kind of gear do I get to work on? What's training like? Because for one, it uh, shows that you're interested and you're trying to map things out, and it helps shape the discussion there. And also, if I'm answering your question, I'm not asking you a question. So you can help shape the interview within reason.
That's
I mean,
true.
you got panel, so try and make it your own. I mean, and it also helps show your personality. Where it's like you'd be like, oh well, I got my hipster bike. Is there a stand there? And they'll be like, oh, we got a hipster bike stand. Welcome to the team. Or
Well, that's a good point. Like it's, if you start asking questions, you make the interview more about who you are rather than what you know. And most of the time, that's what they care about is who you are. They want to be able to see, can you learn?
what is usually lacking, no matter who you are, unless like you're like a real rock star. And but senior interviews are an entirely different beast. There, it's like they're more okay. Well, let's get really deep into your output more than hey, do you know what OSPF is?
Yeah, there's a difference in wanting to hire someone to take care of your company or wanting to hire someone to come in and help out with something. That's a big difference. I've been on both sides. Like I've been in situations where I wanted to hire just a secondary engineer that can come in, learn what we do, kind of shadow me and get up there. And that's, I don't care who you are. If you can demonstrate passion, fine. But if you want to bring in someone to replace a senior, yeah, it's got to be like, you got to know your stuff. It's going to be a very, very in-depth technical interview.
And a tip I just realized when I started making videos more frequently is that recording yourself is really, really hard. Like you spend like an hour effort to get like a 10-minute video. It takes a lot of time to get the stream of consciousness down and whatnot. But if you do something like that for either a mock interview or you just record yourself and trying to work for your answers, you can help distill what you're trying to say. Because when you're trying to go to interview there, I mean, they're not looking for snappy answers, but if you can get like practice like and confidence delivering something and in your answers, then that's always a good thing there because it's mostly confidence more than anything else there.
Oh yeah. I mean, I remember when I would have like an interview call scheduled, and it might be like an IT manager interview kind of thing. I would 30 minutes before the call, I would get up from my desk because I would always be interviewing. I was at work. I would go walk around the block and just rehearse answers to questions I might think they'd be asking, and I'd kind of walk through it. Just because I'd interviewed for a while, I look up questions on the internet, and I just kind of stream of consciousness, get prepared, kind of prepare my mind and get those grooves set. Because yeah, you don't want to be in that interview and just kind of be like, I don't know, sure, yeah, I don't know, I'm sorry, like being all awkward. You want to have at least something ready to go. But anyways, we got to move on a little bit. We got a super chat from Sean Austin. Thank you, Sean. He said he's currently using CBT and packet tracer for the CCNA 200-301, the new stuff. He's going through a section a night because he only has 1 to 2 hours of good study time. What else could you recommend to enhance his study time? So like this is a situation where very limited, doesn't have the leisure of having work to be able to lab up things, very short amount of time. What would you recommend, Don?
Focus on the theory. The reason why is if you focus, cut out all the configuration bits and you focus on understanding how the bits go together, then when you can have your more focused labs, you can apply them better. But ultimately, it's the theory that is going to get you through. You need to know how to configure stuff as well for the actual exam, but in your interviews and whatnot, in the real world, you actually need to know how ARP works, just to pick a random example, right? Like you need to. So focus on the theory, and then once you get past all that there, like kind of do like an inverse of my passive reading, just kind of cut out all the configuration stuff. It's going to be boring, don't get me wrong, but this is your reality. You're going to have to work your way through it. And Then from there, you can start doing focus labs and kind of go back and uh, focus on configuration things. Then you probably need to do a refresher as well because your theory is like removed from your configuration. But you're gonna have to do it that way if that's your truly how much time you have there. Because if you start doing the lab route, what's going to happen is, well, guess what? It takes 40 minutes to get your lab up and running perfectly in Packet Tracer, and then you mess around
So true.
command for 10 minutes. So focus on the theory, like as my dad used to say, eat the money. Like don't fill up on potatoes and whatnot. Like get the eat the good stuff. And that's probably the best bang for your buck there. And then as you get more time there, you can kind of expand and get more configuration. Because as you know more and more theory, you're going to have less and less issues when you actually lab things because you realize like, oh, OSPF needs the same sub area number to peer or that kind of thing, rather than trying to lab that chapter 1 and then you don't realize that until chapter 2.
Well, that's excellent. Because let's be honest, CCNA is a lot of theory because you're just getting started into networking and you're learning how networks work. And if you look at the exam topics, this is what I always hear from Keith Barker is look at the verbs that they're saying when they're listing a topic. They might say, know how to configure OSPF, while they might say over here, describe how ARP works. Look at those verbs, describe, configure, and be able to, and that way you can kind of hone in on how you spend your time. You may only have to know the theory of something. You may not need to configure it. And I would also say, back to the passive learning thing, like what Don said, take advantage of the time where your mind isn't totally engaged. Listen to something. My wife and I were recently hanging out with Jeremy Chara and his family, and I was like telling him, yeah, my wife knows your voice because I used to listen to you in the car passively as we, take trips, like when we go to church or when we, go somewhere in Dallas, which is like a 30 or 40-minute drive. I just pop it in, play, because I'm busy. I don't have a lot of time, so I got to take advantage of those little times where I can just any little bit helps. And I know Don's not a fan of flashcards, but man, flashcards, because especially if you're using the spaced repetition method, which means it'll give you a fact or a figure, like what is this, and if you get it right, it'll give you the question again within a day. And if you get it right again, it'll give it to you in 3 days. Like the key factor is it's not going to have you review the same topics and ideas over and over and over. It spaces it out. That way you're making better use of your time, and you're also not going to forget it. It's going to bring it up right when you may have forgotten it and kind of nestle it into your long-term memory. So doing things like that to maximize your time, I think, is key. And yeah, the whole labbing bit, I mean, gosh, labbing every day is definitely a good thing. And but you waste a lot of time labbing and the setup and the why didn't that work? Well, it's just a bug in Packet Tracer. Oh, this and that. There's so much wasted time in labbing. Labbing's awesome, but yeah, when you're crunching for time and it's a lot of theory, maybe skip the lab every once in a while because theory is more important. So yeah, great answer, Don. Moving right along, we have another super chat from. Oh wait, it went away. I scrolled too fast. Here we go. From Crazy Man. Is the MCITP done away with, and is the MCSE back? Well, we just talked about that. Don, I'll let you lead with that.
I missed the first part of that.
Is the MCITP or MC, whatever it is that gone? And is the MCSE back?
Yeah, that was gone in the. Oh Christ, what was that? When did I get my Linux certification? That was.
It was like 2015, wasn't it, or 16?
Yeah, it was about 2016, and then I upgraded to MCSE communication. So, yeah, I believe it's fully gone. It was around the 2012, no, 2016. No, it wasn't 2016. I don't know when it was. It was sometime.
But it's gone now.
Yeah, it's gone.
We got a question from Droid1993.
2013.
Oh, 2013. All right, there's eidetic memory coming out. Droid1993 asks, I want to thank you for the super chat, Droid. He says, I'm studying for the Security Plus. I heard they are updating the cert this year. Should I wait till they update the test? What do you think, Don?
I would say no. Like, as long as you can study for it, like, and to be fair, like, really biased against CompTIA here. So, I mean, I'm sure there's other people that might want to ask before me, but as far in terms of actual value, I don't really care if it's this Sec Plus or Next Plus or
Next
Next
plus.
Plus. That's, that's probably going to be the next cert.
There you go.
It doesn't really matter what version of Sec Plus it is, as long as it meets either your like U.S. Gov requirements or wherever you're doing that cert. So it doesn't really matter if you do it now or later. So you may as well do it now because there's current material. Like now, and not just in this, but any cert. When it does update, you should take, and this is where O'Reilly comes in a lot. You should go back and read like the new books that come out, either online with through OReilly, or if you have CBT Nuggets or whatever, just watch the videos when they eventually come out, just so you're aware, because eventually, like maybe not right away, but when I interview you, I'm going to be aware that wireless is on the CCNA. So what's your wireless skills? And like you probably get away with not knowing wireless for the first little while after the exam change, but eventually people are going to realize like, hey, we should be bugging you about this because hey, this is important to us, and we understand that a CCNA should know this. And the conversation is not going to be, well, I had my CCNA before that. It's going to be, well, that's nice. So what do you know about wireless? Like, so, and the same token, like Sec Plus is a bit more abstract because it literally is just security theory. Like it's not. Uh, there's no configuring a firewall and not in Sec Plus. It's entirely theory.
Right.
Mostly CompTIA, really. So
Hold on, are you a fan of CompTIA?
I am not. I quite enjoyed their what was it, right through repair debacle.
Yes.
But anyway, my point is that learn it for the security theory, assuming the updates are a decent update. I'll give them credit. Sure, it's probably a decent update coming up. But read the book just so you're aware of what's going on, because assuming they update it to cover, like, I don't know, the new encryption standard for encrypt, like WPA3, for example, then
Wi-Fi 6. Yeah.
it's good to know. And it could come up in your thing there, but otherwise, just do. I wouldn't wait for the exam update because it's not like a practical skill exam like the CCNA or Juniper or whatever that's going to be, or even like the Azure 104 that is Birmingham in my middle of my book. Like those are practical exams. So it's like, okay, well, you need to know the stuff because you're not going to. Long story short, do it now.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that because, like, I mean, especially with the CCNA, we had this exact situation. People are asking, should I go for the old CCNA while we still have time, or should I wait for the new CCNA? Doing the current CCNA and doing the current Security Plus is better because you have more material. I mean, people who are going for the new CCNA had to wait for a while for the new material to come out. And also, the new material, while it probably is great, I can vouch for it, we don't know what the new exam is like yet. It could be way different than what we're expecting. I hope not, but it could be.
Todd and I were joking because he has access to the Neticat curriculum coming up.
Yeah.
And they, I'll just say they cover material I covered in a far lighter glove. And it's going to be interesting to see which one is correct. And anyway, the point is it's all guesswork. And it's not like they sit me down and say, hey, Donald, this is what we want you to teach the CCNAs. No, we get the same exam topics you do and we write a book about it.
Yep. Everyone's in the dark, even window load them. So it's always interesting to see how that comes about. And then to talk on your other point, when the new stuff does come out, when the new exam does launch, you should definitely go back and study that material and see what's new. It's just going to be better for you. You already have the certification, so you're good there. You got that checkbox, but you want to keep up to date, and the same goes for the CCNA too.
And ideally, you should be interested in the security industry, so you should just naturally be like, okay, what's on the exam,
exactly.
And do I know?
Unless you're just getting that DoD checkbox, then you don't care at all. But
carry on.
But like new CCNA, I mean, if you have the current CCNA, you went through Certpocalypse, and you got it, you're good. You definitely want to check out the new topics: security, wireless, automation. Those are things that now going forward, companies are like Don said, they're going to expect you to know as a CCNA. Maybe not right away, but as HR and hiring managers catch on, they're going to expect it now. Now, moving on, we have a super chat from Miss Heather Smiles. This, I guess, will be for both of us. She says, and actually, it's more for you, actually. It says, does he have a favorite cert that he has taken so far? She says she's enjoying CCNP and Linux Plus herself. So, Don, you've taken like every cert exam in the world. What's your favorite?
Favorite? That could be taken a lot of different ways.
It's
Um,
interpretive. Take it however you want.
my favorite exam experience after the fact, because I hated it at the time, was when I upgraded my mcse Azure to the Azure Expert. I didn't realize it was a lab exam,
Just
and
a
I didn't
total
study
lab,
for it.
all labbing.
Well, it was a hybrid, and I think Microsoft was just seeing how much pain they could put for the upgrade people. But I don't know if the actual two exam path is like this, but basically it was because I'll back up a little bit and say I upgraded my MCSA Azure like on the Friday, and it was a pain less like, oh, do you know what Kubernetes is? Okay, cool, you're upgraded. And then I'm like, okay, well, I'm just gonna do this on Monday, and then I did it towards the end of the day because like, yeah, whatever. And I was expecting like, okay, well, configure something in Kubernetes and call it a day. No, it was so first it was like 20 questions. I'm like, okay, well, this is what I was expecting. Like then bumps me into a desktop. I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool, and it's like actual Azure, and they have a little page or like a CCIE task list. Like, have you ever seen like it's like configure this VLAN, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
This was like configure a VNet and create a Ubuntu VM with this storage and this and that. And like, okay, it was like 10 questions. Like, okay, that was fun. Good job, Microsoft. I hit next, bumps me into another desktop. I'm like, okay. And so this time it's the same thing except for networking. And then I'm like, okay, that was good job. Hit next, another desktop. And this was another 10 questions or so. And this one was all storage, if I remember correctly. And then I'm like, okay, Microsoft, this is fun. This is like a 6-hour exam, and I'm at 5 hours now. And
Daggum. Wow.
and it's like, and I'm like, okay. Anyway, I hit next, new desktop. This is all automation, PowerShell. Like, so basically, be like, write a PowerShell script that provisions a Ubuntu box with this and that and the other thing.
Dang.
And I'm like, okay, and there's like 10 of them. So I'm like, I can't remember the exact things, but I have like an hour left. And I'm like, okay, great job, Microsoft. Hit next. Case studies.
Wow.
There were like 4 case studies. So I finished with like 10 minutes left in the 6-hour exam. And I usually finish like exams like half an hour. And so they're like, okay, we need to grade your exam. I'm like, okay, well, I failed. I'm like, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to, it's like, this is a lot bigger, and I have like to finish it this week for the upgrade, or I lose the upgrade path. And it's like, so fortunately, Microsoft's very fast at grading there. So they sent the, hey, you passed there. I've never been so happy to see a Microsoft bug. It's like they probably meant to fail me, but they hit the wrong button.
Did you take the AZ-103?
No.
The way you're describing that test was on a very, very small way how the AZ-103 exam was. That, to answer the question for myself, that was the most fun I ever had on an exam, because what you experienced was that it was, hey, configure this and go through a checklist, and then there were case studies. You had to answer your questions off the case study, configure a ton of stuff. It was so hands-on. It was so fun. So yeah, kudos. Like, Microsoft killed it with their exam. I loved it. I can't wait to take another Azure exam because it was really fun.
Yeah, so that's probably my favorite one. All in all, there's bits and pieces here and there where it's like, like, oh, that was kind of a neat thing, or hey, that's kind of a fun interface. But that was probably the most, like, aside from like the CCIE lab, like that was like the most like sitting at home. It's kind of funny because I have an ultra wide monitor, and if you ever have one there, like, you have to like turn your head to see the screen
Yep.
there. And when you do it from home, they basically have these guys who watch you on the webcam, right? And so like because the exam tasks, or you can't see my hand, or yeah, you kind of can, but like the exam tasks are like on the right side of the page. I'm constantly like looking over here, and they're like phoning me like every 5 minutes, like what's over there? Show us.
Yeah.
Like I'm just trying to read.
Oh, and by the way, taking an exam at home, the best experience ever, right? Like I that was my first time doing that, and it was like I was in love with it. So fun.
Though they it can go bad, but generally speaking, I've had more positive experiences than not. There's one their review messed up, and they it's like, oh, you have to close your network adapter. It's like, then I wouldn't be able to take the test. And it's like, well, our software says you need to shut it down. It's like, well,
Okay, you're
they
the boss.
they
Nice
ended up
talking to you.
funding it. Yeah.
That's funny. All right, so we got time for one last question here. It's from Lancelot007. Thank you for the super chat. And this is probably going to be a hard question to answer. He says cert versus degree. He says he has an associate degree in cybersecurity and networking. Should I go back to school for a bachelor's or get a certification?
That's not really a hard question to answer at all. Um, so degrees are mostly fine if you're taking a programming type of degree. And the reason why is because a programming job, they haven't quite moved on to certs yet. So they have you, like they want you to have a portfolio, and programming in particular, like you benefit from sitting in a calculus class and like their rigid structure of learning all the programming stuff. So a programming degree is fine. In Canada, we have a weird law about we can't call someone an engineer unless they're a principal engineer, like a actual certification. They actually can actually sue Microsoft because of the mcse at one point. So if you really want to be a true engineer, then uh, an engineering degree is fine. But other than that, like I have a, it's a hard, actually, it's maybe a hard question, but
Told you.
fine, you get this one shot. Um, so if you're a school, the best thing it can do for you is not get you a job or anything like that, is teach you how to learn and hopefully provide an environment where you make peers, like friends and long-term contacts and that kind of thing. The actual curriculum, you don't usually get a lot of college here. Like networking is usually CCNA taught over 4 terms or so, um, and then they'll throw in a couple like Vietnam history or whatever there. So you're for your there, and they'll make you read an English book or two, and that's your degree. Uh, they'll maybe throw in like a Windows class, which is usually just random MCP exam at the time, and
Right.
then a Linux exam. And so basically, like in terms of raw knowledge, you're not getting a lot out of it, but what you're getting is an environment where, in theory, you have a lab that you can play with all day, and you have an environment where you don't have a job like 9 to 5, where people are like, "Why aren't you feeding the family?" or "Why are you starving to death?" Like you. So in terms of learning environment, school's fine. In terms of practicality, like I personally and most of the people I deal with don't even look at a degree. I don't care. Like unless you're like a Harvard or MIT or something like impressive, like oh that's fun. Like I don't really care. Like I don't. And there's reasons for that. Like it's not just me being. Well, maybe it isn't just me being a prick, but
Well, we always
but
assume that, so you don't have to say it.
yeah, yeah. Oh, I was like to say it. But the reason for it is because, like, if you look on Reddit on, like, say, r/networking, whatever, or sysadmin, like, there's usually a good 10, 20 posts a year of people freaking out, like, hey, I'm about to get my degree and I know nothing. Like, I slept through class and
Mm.
I let my friend Chuck do all the homework while I was partying in the party room or whatever. Like,
Did you
so.
party a lot in school?
Once or twice. Um, but the point is, like, So, like for one, it's very easy to either intentionally or unintentionally like cheat your way through there. Like you can do group work on all your work there, and that's not always an equal distribution of knowledge there. And at the end of the day, like it's a random skill set. So I would rather hire someone with a CCNA because rather than someone with a network degree because if someone has a CCNA, they were interested to take the CCNA, so I know they in theory like networking.
Right.
They understood the material and they passed the test and ignoring any cheating possibilities and whatnot. We'll figure that out in the interview, but they should have the baseline knowledge for CCNA and they have decent drive, right? So it's uh, so anyway, a CCNA is a better pick for an interview because if you look at the degree person, well, maybe he picked a random degree because he thought it looked fun at school, or and then he maybe slept through the CCNA classes because he didn't really like it there, but he got a degree because why not? And
Right.
you have no real, and then even if the student is really good, maybe the teachers weren't. Like, there's a lot of variables that actual thing there. So for programming, I recommend a degree. So you're never going to go wrong, and you can do. What's that MIT thing there where you can do the ad hoc classes online?
Oh yeah, the MOOCs, I think that was what they're called, massively available online courses or whatever.
Yeah, like you can do that kind of stuff, and we'll start building towards the like knowledge there. What I would actually recommend for a degree, and this is more for seniors more than juniors, but when you hit a certain threshold, MBA becomes very valuable because
Mm,
as you get more senior, the closer you get to the business, and the more understanding about how costs and accounting and that kind of stuff works is more valuable because it can enable you for senior management eventually. You can get to a certain point without it, but at a certain point, the business is, if they like you, they'll probably either tell you to get an MBA or in a lot of cases, they'll offer some kind of sponsorship program where they'll pay for it.
right.
Um, Now, this is not if you're like a random network analyst. This is like if you're like a network manager and they like you kind of thing. Not
Yeah,
like
yeah, like you're on the track to sea level kind of stuff. It's obvious, and they're kind of grooming you for it.
yeah, but usually you'll find that management you'll find people who like you and they'll start grooming you because management like keeping people with them who give them success in general most cases. So if your manager likes you there and he becomes a director, there's a decent chance he's going to try and uh, pull you either to his department or to like a management role just so he can keep you there, assuming like you have those kind of traits. But so anyway, MBA is good, programming is fine, engineering if you must, but otherwise, other degrees. I mean, I'm not saying don't do it. I will never say don't do
Right,
college. I'm
right.
just saying it's a personal decision you have to make, but you have to you have to ask yourself: is the 4 years and probably tens of thousands of dollars in debt worth it more than it is to spend 1,000 or 2 getting a CCNA and maybe hitting the job industry for those 4 years?
Yeah, I think I completely agree with you. We've talked about this before, and I harp on this all the time. But yeah, I mean, getting 4 years of on the job experience is way more valuable than going to college for 4 years. Also, I understand having a degree is definitely a thing for people, especially if like you might be the first person in your family to get a degree, and that's a big deal. I understand that, and that's a big enough why for you to go for that. But if you're just getting a degree thinking that it will help you get that first job, it will help you, but will it be the best option for you? That's debatable. Depends on where you are, depends on what jobs are available and what they look for. For some countries, having that bachelor degree checkbox is absolutely required. For the most part in North America, that's not so much the case. And I've been in the situation where I've been hiring people and seeing associates, that's good enough. Seeing nothing, that's good enough. But if I see CCNA working on CCNP, that for me is way better because it tells me more about who you are. A degree tells me that doesn't really tell me much. It could be very, very stale. Like degrees are stale. We don't know how current they are. We never know. If you have a current CCNA, I know a little bit about you and what you know. Um, And then also, if you're running a lot of people say, oh, you need a degree to go into management. You need a degree for that. I would say that's true, but wait on that. Wait until you get to that point where you're about to get into management, and kind of like what Don said, because at that point, odds are they're going to pay for your degree. They're going to sponsor you for that. So if that ever happens to you, I would say just wait for that. Don't try to plan 20 years in the future. Like, oh, one day I'm going to be a CIO, so I'm going to get my degree now. Wait. Once you become really good at tech.
And paradoxically, if you get an MBA now, well, it's like, why am I hiring an MBA for a network
Exactly. It might
junior?
hurt you now instead. Exactly.
The same way as CCNP can hurt you if you don't have the experience to
back up that number.
justify.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
gotta be careful what you're putting on your resume, whether it's the degree or whether it's a certification or whatever.
Yeah. You have to be very careful because you want to make sure. I mean, you have to tailor your resume to the job you're applying for, and if you have no experience, you want to make sure you look like a junior. You want to make sure you look like someone who's about to start up, and not just like. It's very hard to hire a CCNP for a junior level job. It just doesn't make sense a lot of the time.
And I've seen and said too, but it's not unheard of for an interviewer to tell a candidate, like, look, don't list your CCNP on your resume anymore. You
Yeah.
can't defend.
I
I mean, it's kind of a natural thing to do, but I mean, like, it's helping the person in the long run because if I see CCNP, I'm asking CCNP level questions with CCNP level expectations. So if you don't know what OSPF is and you're CCNA, it's like, or you don't know how OSPF neighbors work, excuse me, and you're a CCNA, it's like, yeah, that's fine. He's a junior, whatever. But if you're a CCNP, it's like, okay, you're telling me you're a CCNP and this is causing me problems. Like, what's going on here? Like, so it changes the room there. And likewise, if you're in like an MBA randomly, you're not like an MBA guy who's trying to get into the industry, like you're a junior, it's gonna send the really wrong message.
Oh yeah, completely.
It's just like getting like an MCSE and trying to apply for a network job, or the opposite, right? Like, well, not so much the opposite, but like if you pick the wrong cert for the wrong industry, it's going to be like, what's this all about?
Yeah, it's gonna throw up red flags, and you don't want to put any barriers between you and that job. Tailoring your resume to look like the person that they would want to hire is the best thing you can do for yourself. Now, one last question. I know I said the last one was the last one, but we got a new super chat from Ryan Lesky. Thank you, Ryan. He says, I have a new job starting in March.
Congrats.
Yeah, that's awesome. Congrats, Ryan. He says they require me to get CCNP in 2 months after he starts. What would be the best way to prepare for the new CCNP? It seems like not much study material is out yet. What would you say, Don?
So, and I'll preface this saying this is all guesswork. We haven't seen the actual exams yet. And also, it might be beneficial to make your business aware of the substantial exam change. They might not be following it that closely because you might be able to get a couple months out of them. They're like, hey, look, this isn't the CCNP that you're used to. This is a different animal. But aside from that, the name of the game now is specialization. So you need to decide what's important to the business and what you're interested in. So, for example, if you're like, for example, I just made some SD-WAN videos. I'll probably be making a few more as I go. But if you want to specialize in SD-WAN because you think it's cool or your business, you think it's useful, you pick that specialization and then you go get that part. But then you still need to learn everything else for the core, basically. So it's this is where I don't quite know where to tailor the advice. But pick your specialization first, get that out of the way. And then, depending on how hard the core is actually going to hit you there, and I suspect it's going to be fairly hard. Like it's going to be like a Jackie Chan kind of kick kind of thing. Like it's going to hurt. But I would assume the best way to do it is take it one specialization at a time. So pick what's interesting or what's probably most known to you, which is probably going to be the routing and switching one.
In RC.
Oh, most of it. Yeah. Do that first because that's the most familiar, I assume. And then from there, you're going to have to decide what's interesting to you. Like you're going to have to do say SD-WAN next or wireless, and it's probably going to be or opportunistic. I can speak properly. Um, where you pick maybe maybe I make a CCP wireless video and you watch that, so you learn that component, and Chuck decides that he's going to make a CPT Nuggets course on, I don't know, SD-WAN
Woo.
and whatever. And so anyway, you're going to have to find a way to check all those boxes. I did flip through the Encore book, and where was it? No, yeah, I flipped through the Encore book on Safari or O'Reilly now. Oh, if I learn your name one way, I'll never learn it the other way.
Call me Carlos.
It's yeah, but it looks decent. I suspect it's probably going to get you. I'd estimate probably 20% of there, because it seems like they're just covering all the details. And like I did the like when I read the CCI written books and then did the CCI writtens, like they tell you like a basic baseline of what's on the exam, but it's really meant to be the end of your studies, kind of like a boot camp, because they're not teaching you like 10,000 pages worth of things. They're teaching you the CCNP written book or CCI written book is like 1,000 pages, whatnot. And so I suspect it's probably going to be similar there, where you're expected to learn all the other components, and then you would read the Encore book to finish it. But I suspect like INE is going to be all over this there. They're going to be making their CCIE and CCP courses like right now to start covering all the topics aggressively, because that's their bread and butter. So I would say that's probably the best way to go.
And CBC Nuggets is currently working on the Encore as well. Shameless plug.
Fair enough. Oh, I figured I'd leave that open to you, but I'm not sure what you guys are working on or how well you're or how deep you're hitting it. But it's basically you probably want multiple sources regardless of what you do. And I would probably expect to fail at least once because, frankly, I think at least until people understand the exam there, like sometimes you have to take a sacrificial attempt. And I have done this a few times in my career too, where it's like, I have no idea what this exam is going to be. I have no material, I'm just going to wing it. And once I get an idea what they're asking about and what it looks like, then I can go from
And
there.
that's what I'm going to do. Like, I don't know what's going to be on that exam, so I'm going to schedule it probably the week after it launches and just see what it's like. Because we have no idea. But
I got challenged by Cisco to do the 500, so I got to do it on the 24th.
oh, yeah, I did too. um, which exam are you taking on the 24th?
I'm taking the DevNet for sure, and I'm probably going to end up writing the CCNA, because when you write a book on it, you're kind of obligated to see how right you
Yep,
were.
yep. Absolutely. I'll be doing the same thing. But back on the CCNP thing, I would say Don's advice on letting the company know that there was a massive change in the CCNP, just to make sure they are aware. And then I could use that opportunity to say, hey, they
Send me on a camp.
yeah, send me to a boot camp because that's everything's new. Also, what do you guys need me to do? What specialization are you like? What's my primary role? Am I going to be a security more focused? Am I going to look at automation? Maybe, probably not. I wish, right? Is it going to be more wireless? Like there's specializations for that. And then, but also just looking at the exam topics, kind of like what Don said. Like there is some overlap, a lot of overlap between the new CCNP and the old CCNP. So there's great training material out there. But then if you look at like, and there's a bunch of stuff on SD-WAN. There's a bunch of stuff on wireless. Cisco has published books on SD-WAN. There are SD-WAN videos on Don's channel. Go subscribe to it, The Packet Thrower, right now. So there are resources out there that will help you fill in those gaps. You can start now. But it's going to take that first attempt to see what's going on, maybe hearing what I have to say about it when I inevitably post my video about it without giving away too much and violating the terms. And then Don, I'm sure, will have some opinions. So we'll be able to inform you, hey, it's going to hit you hard with SD-WAN, so go heavy on SD-WAN. But yeah, don't wait. Start now, and then just be honest with your company. That's what I would say. Anyways, I think we are just about done. My wife's like, hey, honey, wrap it up. Because we could do this all night. I meant to stop at 8, and here we are at 9 o'clock, Don. So we just
Well, it's 8 o'clock for me, actually. Yay, time
Oh,
zones.
then you know what? She can't get mad at me. So that works out. Loophole. Well, Don, Mr. Packet Thrower, thank you so much for coming on. Your knowledge, your expertise, your experience is so valuable for me to hear this and also the community. So thank you. We'll definitely have you on again to tackle whatever else we got, because you are a fountain of knowledge. And guys, if you have any questions for Don, I encourage you to go join his Discord, go subscribe to his channel, which I'll link below this video, and go check out my Discord. He's also in there a lot. You'll see a bunch of meow, 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 more Cisco A+ crap that happens and flashes, but that's part of the mentorship thing we mentioned earlier. There's a ton of people in our groups mentoring each other. He's always in there helping out. So more questions for him, go in there. He's got so much experience. Don, any closing words, any ideas, or are you just tired?
I could probably use another round. I'm not really tired, but more Cisco.
More Cisco. So with that, we'll end it. Thanks for watching, guys. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button if you like what I'm doing here. Hit that like button because it helps satisfy the robot overlords that is the YouTube algorithm. And I'm tired as well. So more Cisco, more Azure, more all this technology, more Linux, and but also take it easy, relax. We kind of talked about studying this time, and you can do this. Take your time. There's a method to the madness. Enjoy it. Don't stress yourself out, because when you're stressed out, it's hard to remember things. You're not efficient. There's one quote I always look back on that I mentioned in my video. Going slow is the fastest thing you can do. Sometimes it just takes going slow. Get that passive learning going. And that's all I got. We'll catch you guys next time.